Sammy Davis Jr. leaned over the hospital bed, the sterile hum of machines slicing through the thick silence. His father's jers, once nimble on stage lights and taps, now trembled against his palm. "Promise me, boy," Sammy Sr. whispered, voice a fragile thread. "You'll carry this alone. It's about your blood and not mine." Sammy's heart stuttered, the words landing like a missed cue in a sold-out show. He'd rushed from a rehearsal in Vegas, trading spotlights for this shadowed room where the man who'd shaped his every step now unraveled a lifetime's performance. Elvira, his mother, hovered by the door, her face etched with quiet endurance, while Uncle Will paced the hall, muttering about Unish tours. If this secret has you on the edge already, smash that subscribe button, share with a friend who loves these hidden truths, and drop a comment below. Where are you watching from tonight? Sammy Sr.'s eyes locked on his son's, unblinking, as if willing the truth across the divide. Back in 25, before the trio hit big, I was scraping by in Harlem clubs. Your mother, she was dancing with another troupe. There was a man, not me. He vanished after you came along. The confession hung jagged and raw, pulling Sammy into a whirl of fractured memories. Childhood spotlights where he'd tap in perfect sync, yet always sensed a shadow in the applause. Sammy pulled back slightly, his trademark grin flickering like a faulty bulb. "Dad, you're delirious. We've been the Davis men forever, blood and rhythm." But his father's grip tightened, nails digging faint crescents. "No lies now, son. I raised you as mine because I loved her more than truth. That man, he's still out there, powerful, connected. If he knew, he'd claim you." The room seemed to contract, walls pressing in with the weight of erased histories. Elvira stepped forward, her silk scarf slipping. "Sammy Sr., not here. Not like this." Her voice cracked the tension, but her eyes darted. Guilt? Fear? Sammy caught it, the subtle flinch, and pieces clicked. Late-night arguments behind vaudeville curtains, her distant gaze during family bows. He'd chalked it up to the road's grind. Less trains from Philly to Chicago. Now doubt coiled in his gut, cold and insistent. Sammy Sr. coughed, a wet rasp echoing off monitors. "D him, Sammy, or he'll D you." The name, Marcus Hale, owned half the theaters up north. Gave her a promise ring before I swept in. Marcus Hale. The name struck like a dissonant note. Sammy had heard whispers in dressing rooms. Hale, the shadowy promoter who'd booked the trio early on, always watching Elvira a beat too long. A rival who'd faded into legend, rumored to pull strings from boardrooms overlooking Broadway. Sammy's mind raced through timelines. Born in Harlem, carted on stage at 2, the Will Mastin trio his cradle. But photos from those days, his father's proud arm around a toddler him, Elvira's smile tight. Had it all been a meticulously rehearsed act? He straightened, adjusting his cufflinks out of habit, the gold glinting under fluorescent glare. Why tell me now, after 50 years of spotlights and secrets? Because you're rising higher than us all, son. Rat Pack the Strip, they're watching. Hale's kin might sense it, protect what's yours. Sammy Sr.'s breath shallowed, each word a labored push. Sammy nodded mechanically, but inside fury brewed, not at the man fading before him, but at the facade. The entertainer in him wanted to laugh it off, spin it into a Vegas anecdote. Yet the son felt unmoored, identity fracturing like a dropped prop. Elvira crossed to the bed, smoothing her husband's brow. Enough, he's resting. But Sammy held up a hand, voice steady despite the storm. No, Ma. Details. Where's Hale now? She hesitated, lips pressing thin. Chicago, last I heard. Runs Hale Enterprises, keeps to himself. Uncle Will burst in then, broad shoulders filling the frame. What's this hush? Sammy Sr., you pulling one last prank? The old man's laugh was a ghost of tap shoe rattles. Wish it were, Will. Sammy knows now. Family's rewriting its ale. Will's face darkened, fists clenching. You fool. We built this on trust. Now what? Tension thickened, the four of them suspended in a tableau of unspoken accusations. Sammy paced to the window, city lights blurring into streaks, LA sprawl mocking his unraveling world. He turned back, eyes scanning faces he'd trusted through blackouts and breakthroughs. You all knew. Pieced it together and let me shine blind? Elvira's tears welled silent. We chose love over labels, Sammy. You were ours. But the words rang hollow now, echoes in an empty theatre. Sammy Sr. reached out again. Forgive the script I wrote. Make your own ending. Sammy knelt, clasping the frail hand. I will, Dad. But this changes the act. As monitors beeped steadily, he absorbed the revelation, plotting his next move. Marcus Hale. A name that could eclipse his triumphs or forge new ones. The family watched him, breaths held, waiting for the reaction that would redeem them all. Hours blurred into vigil. Sammy slipped out for air, hospital corridors a maze mirroring his thoughts. He dialed his manager from a payphone, voice clipped. Clear my schedule. Trip to Chicago, personal. The line crackled agreement. Back in the room, Elvira pulled him aside. Don't chase ghosts. You're Sammy Davis Jr. That's enough. Is it? He murmured, searching her face for the mother he'd idolized. Uncle Will grunted from the corner. Boy's got fire, let him burn if he must. Sammy Sr. stirred, murmuring Hale's name like a refrain. Dawn crept through blinds, gilding the scene in reluctant light. Sammy stood taller, resolve hardening. The secret wasn't just a whisper. It was a spotlight swung his way, demanding performance. By noon, nurses adjusted drips, family rotations stretching thin. Sammy cornered Will privately. You covered for them? All those years? Will's gaze hardened, a veteran's steel. Family's a troupe, kid. We improvise. But Hale, he's no stage ghost. Real power. Touched lives we crossed. Sammy absorbed it, visions flashing, early gigs where Hale's men lingered post-show, offers that came too sweet. He returned to the bedside, father's eyes fluttering open one last time. Proud of you, son, always. Sammy squeezed back, masking turmoil. Rest easy, I've got the encore. As Sammy Sr. drifted, Sammy's mind mapped paths, confrontation, denial, or quiet erasure. The family dispersed to corners, fractured glances speaking volumes. Sammy stepped into the hall, lighting a cigarette despite the no-smoking signs. Smoke curled like questions unanswered. Marcus Hale loomed larger now, a figure from faded marquees threatening to steal the show. His reaction, not rage or collapse, but a calculated pivot, the shock rippling outward, forcing kin to confront their roles. Elvira joined him, tentative. What now? Sammy exhaled slowly. Now I meet the ghost. Her nod was resigned, the first crack in their united front. Uncle Will watched from afar, arms crossed, loyalty tested. The hospital faded behind as Sammy strode to his car, engine roaring to life. Chicago beckoned, secret in tow, promising collisions no one foresaw. The drive to the airport wound through sun-baked freeways, radio crooning standards he'd mastered. Each lyric twisted now, laced with subtext. At the gate he boarded alone, window seat framing endless skies. Hale Enterprises HQ rose in his imagination, glass tower piercing clouds, a throne for the man who'd unknowingly sired a legend. Touchdown in O'Hare brought crisp wind, sharpening focus. A cab ferried him downtown, past theaters he'd conquered. Hale's building gleamed, security tight. Sammy flashed his smile at reception. Tell Mr. Hale Sammy Davis is here, family business. The wait stretched, minutes ticking like a metronome. Elevator ascended smoothly, depositing him at the penthouse. Marcus Hale rose from a leather chair, silver-haired, sharp-suited, eyes mirroring Sammy's own intensity. The dancer's boy. Or, mine? The question landed soft, seismic. Sammy held gaze unflinching. Let's D out. Conversation unfolded deliberate, decades compressed into hours. Hale confirmed fragments, brief flame with Elvira, a hasty parting amid rising careers. I watched from afar, proud but distant. Sammy probed layers, unearthing ledgers of influence, quiet aid to the trio's breaks. No malice, just lives diverged. Yet shockwaves hit the family via hurried calls. Elvira's voice trembled over wire. You're there? With him? Uncle Will barked warnings. Sammy Sr., clinging in L.A., heard echoes, peace mingled with regret. Sammy's poise stunned them. No breakdown, but alliance forged, a new dynamic emerging. Back in LA days later, bedside vigil resumed. Sammy Sr. sensed shift. "You faced it." Sammy nodded. "And rewrote us all." The family gathered, bonds strained yet resilient, secret diffused into strength. Sammy's reaction, a masterful turn, left them reeling, poised for whatever curtain call followed. Sammy stood at the window of the dimly lit hospital room, the city lights of Los Angeles flickering like distant stage spots below. His father's words still hung in the air, a confession whispered in the hours that twisted their shared history into something unrecognizable. Not blood, but choice. That was the secret. Sammy's mother had carried him from another union, hidden in the rhythm of vaudeville tours, and his father had claimed him anyway, raising him under the glare of spotlights and the weight of applause. The family encircled the bed now, aunts and uncles shifting uneasily, cousins exchanging glances that spoke volumes without a word. He turned slowly, his eyes sharp, missing nothing. "So that's it," Sammy said, voice steady as a drumbeat. "All those years of rhythm lessons, those late-night sinking steps, you built me from scratch." No outburst, no collapse, just that piercing gaze sweeping the room, landing on each face like a spotlight exposing flaws in the performance. His Aunt Clara clutched her purse tighter, knuckles pale. "Sammy, we didn't know. Your father, he wanted to protect you." But Sammy raised a hand, silencing her. The room thickened with unspoken accusations. Uncle Will leaned forward, brow furrowed. "Boy, you gonna let this unravel everything? We danced through tougher spots than this." Sammy's lips curved into a half-smile, the kind that masked 1,000 calculations. He paced the worn linoleum, shoes clicking softly. Memories flooded back unbidden. The first time he'd tapped across a stage at 3 years old, hoisted by those strong arms. The crowds roaring, the critiques that cut deeper than any blade. "Unravel?" he echoed. "No. This rewrites the script. Makes every step I took mine alone." The family murmured, a low hum of confusion. His sister Ramona stepped closer, eyes wide. "What do you mean?" "Dad's gone, Sammy. We gotta hold together." But he shook his head, pulling a small, faded photograph from his jacket pocket. It showed a woman, elegant in a feathered hat, cradling a baby. Not their mother. "He gave me this last night, said it was time to face the full orchestra." Tension coiled tighter. Uncle Will exploded to his feet. "You think this changes who raised you? Who bled for those tours?" Sammy met his stare, unflinching. "It changes nothing, and everything. I owe you gratitude. But truth? That's my fuel now. If you're hooked on this unraveling family drama, hit that subscribe button, share with a friend, and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Let's build this community together." Hours blurred into the drive back to the Hollywood Hills home they shared in quieter times. Sammy drove, the convertible's top down, wind whipping through his close-cropped hair. Ramona sat shotgun, silent at first, then, "You're not telling the press, are you?" He glanced sideways. "Why not? Let the world see the man behind the mask." She twisted her hands. "It'll destroy the legacy. The Sammy Davis Jr. story, everyone thinks it's pure showbiz fairy tale." He laughed, a short, mirthless sound. "Fairy tales bore me. Give me the grit, the real tempo." Back home, the living room felt smaller, walls lined with framed posters of their act. Will Mastin Trio Eternal. Sammy poured drinks, scotch neat for the men, sherry for the women. They gathered around the grand piano, Gers tracing keys idly. Aunt Clara broke the quiet. "Your father chose love over blood. That's noble." Sammy sat at the bench, hands hovering. "Noble. Or convenient." He struck a chord, low and resonant. "He toured with me as a prop at first. Then I outshone him. This secret, he held it to keep control." The notes cascaded, improvising a blues riff that filled the space, pulling emotions taut. Uncle Will slammed his glass down. "Watch your tone, nephew. I carried you both when circuits dried up." Sammy's Gers flew faster, the melody turning frantic. "And I carried the trio when age slowed you. We're even." Ramona stood, voice trembling. "Stop this. We're family." Sammy halted, piano silent. Family by choice, stronger than blood. But choices have costs. He revealed more. Letters from the mystery woman postmarked from Chicago. She'd watched his rise from afar, content in silence. The room fractured. Arguments erupted in hushed tones. Clara sided with tradition. Keep it buried. Will demanded loyalty. Ramona pleaded for unity. Sammy listened, then spoke. I'm booking a solo tour. Europe. No trio. Time to dance my own steps. Shock rippled outward. You're leaving us, Ramona gasped. He nodded. Not leaving. Evolving. Father's gift. Freedom to redeem. Days turned to weeks. Rehearsals consumed Sammy. Mirrors reflected a man honing edges sharper than before. The family drifted in and out, testing waters. One night, Will cornered him in the garage. This rage, it's eating you. Sammy polished his shoes methodically. Not rage. Clarity. I was always the outsider. Now I own it. Ramona visited his dressing room before a club gig. Crowds buzzing about rumors. He adjusted his bow tie. Let them. Truth outsells lies. On stage that night, he poured it into the mic, not the secret, but fire. Songs twisted, personal, loss, reinvention. Applause thundered longer than ever. Backstage, Clara waited. You're shining brighter, but at what price? Sammy wiped sweat. Price of pretending paid enough. The tipping point came at a family dinner, tensions simmering like a pot on boil. Will raised a toast. To Sammy Sr., our anchor, Sammy countered. To choices that bind tighter than blood. Then he played the ace. He'd found the woman, tracked her through letters. She lived quietly in Harlem, a widow now. Gasps circled the table. You met her? Ramona whispered. Tomorrow. Flying out. Uncle Will's face darkened. Dragging this into daylight? It'll tarnish everything. Sammy leaned in. Tarnish or polish? The world's ready for real stories. He stood, chair scraping. Join me or not? But I'm stepping forward. Ramona followed him to the porch, stars sharp overhead. What if she rejects you? He lit a cigarette, smoke curling. Rejection's old news. I've danced through worse solos. The flight to New York hummed with anticipation. Sammy stared out at clouds, mind-racing scenarios. Harlem greeted him with familiar bustle. Street vendors calling, horns blaring. He found her address, a brownstone with flower boxes. Knocking, heart steady. The door opened to a woman in her 60s, eyes mirroring his own. Sammy Davis, she said, voice soft. He nodded. The secret's out, father's too. Thought you'd want to know your son. She stepped aside. Inside, photos lined shelves, his face among them. I've watched every show, proud, but your father's choice, it was right. They talked for hours, laughter mixed with pauses heavy. No embraces, just truth exchanged. Back in LA, the family waited. Sammy walked in, expression unreadable. She's family now, by knowledge, if not blood. Will grunted. And the trio? Sammy smiled fully. Revived. But on new terms. My lead, always. Ramona hugged him. Shocked us all, but stronger. Clara nodded. You turned poison to power. Yet under the surface, cracks lingered. Sammy booked bigger venues, solo credos burning bright. Whispers in tabloids hinted at fractures. One evening, alone in his study, he penned a letter to his father's grave. You gave me the stage. I rewrite the play. The family adapted, bonds reforged in fire. Sammy's star ascended, reaction echoing through generations. But in quiet moments he wondered, what other curtains hid? If this twist has you on the edge, smash like, subscribe for more cinematic tales, share with someone who needs the thrill, and comment your thoughts below. Sammy stared at the faded photograph, trembling in his father's grip, the one that had surfaced from the depths of a locked drawer. The image showed a woman with sharp cheekbones and eyes like polished obsidian, standing beside a younger Sammy Davis Sr. And their poses intimate, unguarded. She was my first love, his father whispered, voice fraying like old velvet. Before your mother. And you have a sister out there. Her name is Lena. I kept her hidden to protect us all. The room hung heavy with the weight of that confession. Sammy's aunts and uncles clustered in the shadowed corners of the Harlem brownstone, their breaths shallow, eyes darting between the bed and Sammy Jr. No one spoke. The air thickened, each second stretching into accusation. Sammy Sr.'s chest rose and fell unevenly, his strength poured into those words. He had carried this shadow through decades of spotlights and applause, through the family's rise in vaudeville tents and smoky clubs. Sammy Jr. did not flinch. He did not recoil or demand explanations. Instead, he leaned closer, his single good eye locking onto his father's fading gaze. "I know about Lena," he said quietly, the words landing like a dropped curtain at intermission. Gasps rippled through the room. Aunt Ruby clutched her pearls. Uncle Will's cigar slipped from his jers, ash scattering across the rug like fallen stars. "I've known for years." The family erupted in murmurs, a storm of disbelief. "How? When?" Sammy Sr.'s eyes widened, a spark of life returning for one last miracle. Sammy placed a hand on his father's arm, steady as stage rigging. "You left clues, Pop. That letter in your trunk from 42, the address in Chicago I traced after one of your tours. I found her working as a seamstress in a little shop off Michigan Avenue. Quiet life, no spotlight." Flashback rippled through Sammy's mind like real footage. It started 5 years back, during a swing through the Midwest. The band's bus had broken down near the lakefront, stranding them overnight. Bored, Sammy wandered into that dim shop, bolts of fabric stacked high. Lena had looked up from her singer machine, her smile hesitant, familiar. They talked for hours, about needlework, about dreams deferred. She never mentioned their father, but the resemblance was undeniable, the tilt of her head, the rhythm in her laugh. He pieced it together that night, heart pounding harder than any drum solo. He began sending money anonymously. Envelopes with no return address, just enough for rent, for her daughter's school fees. Lena's girl, little Clara, deserved better than scraps. Sammy watched from afar, hiring a discreet investigator to ensure the funds reached her. It was his silent tribute to the man who taught him to tap dance through pain. Now, as the family pressed in, voices overlapping in frenzy, "You kept this from us. How could you hide her?" Sammy raised a hand, short, sharp. Silence fell. Pop did what he had to. We all have. The road took him places, and secrets followed. "Lena's not after fame or fortune. She's family. That's enough." Sammy Sr. managed a weak nod, a tear tracing down his weathered cheek. "Bring her," he murmured, "before I go." His breath hitched, the effort monumental. Sammy nodded. He had anticipated this. Earlier that week, sensing near, he had wired Lena. She arrived by train that afternoon, veiled in a modest coat, little Clara at her side. The family parted like stage curtains as she entered, the girl's hand tight in hers. Recognition dawned in waves, Ruby's sharp intake, Will's stunned stare. Lena approached the bed, kneeling. "Father," she said simply, voice steady. Sammy Sr. reached out, touching her face, then Clara's. The room dissolved into quiet sobs, not of despair, but release. Sammy stood back, arms crossed, the weight of years shifting. He had carried this alone, fearing it would fracture the fragile empire they built. Show business demanded perfection, no cracks in the facade. One rumor, one whisper, and tours cancelled, deals vanished. But now, exposed, it held. Conversations bloomed haltingly. Aunt Ruby offered Lena a seat. Uncle Will poured coffee. Clara perched on the bed's edge, showing Sammy Sr. a doll from her pocket. Laughter bubbled, tentative at first, then real. As night deepened, Sammy Sr.'s strength waned. He pulled Sammy close one last time. "You were always the strong one," he whispered. "Proud." His hand went limp. The family gathered, holding vigil until his spirit slipped away peacefully, surrounded not by shadows but light. Days blurred into arrangements. Funerals in the business were spectacles, flowers from Sinatra, telegrams from rat packers. But Sammy orchestrated something intimate, a small service at the Apollo, then a drive to Chicago. Lena and Clara rode with him, the Packard humming along Route 66. They buried the ashes in a quiet cemetery overlooking the lake, where waves whispered secrets to the shore. Back in Harlem, the family evolved. Lena moved into the brownstone, her sewing machine whirring in the sunroom. Clara enrolled in school, her laughter filling hallways once silent. Sammy's aunts taught her steps. Uncle Will slipped her nickels for candy. No grand proclamations, no headlines, just daily rhythms, mending what time tore. Sammy resumed the road, but changed. Tours felt lighter, performances sharper. He dedicated encores to family, the crowd roaring without knowing why. In quiet hotel rooms, he penned letters to Lena, updates on Clara's progress, shares of tour stories. The secret, once a burden, became a bridge. One evening, post-show in Vegas, Sammy sat with Frank at the bar. "Family's everything," he said, swirling his drink. Frank raised a glass. "Damn right, kid." Sammy smiled, the weight gone. He had chosen grace over grudge, unity over unraveling. The family, once poised to shatter, stood stronger. Years later, Clara took the stage herself, a dancer with fire in her feet. Sammy watched from the wings, pride swelling. Lena beside him, hand in his. The curtains rose, applause thundered. No more hidden corners. What once threatened to divide had woven them tighter. If this tale of buried truths and unbreakable bonds gripped you, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories that pull back the curtain on the human heart. Share with a friend who loves a good twist, and drop a comment. What's the biggest family secret you've ever uncovered? And as the owl spotlight dimmed on Sammy's storied life, he knew some revelations don't destroy, they redeem.